That's why we found our place. Jai Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari. Jai Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari. Gopi Janababa Girivargari. Gopi Yasodanandana Praja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari. Yamunatira Vanachari. Jai Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari. Jai Radha Punjabi Hari, Radha Punjabi Hari, Hari. Jai Jagannath, Jai Jagannath, Jai Balaji, my Subhadra. Jaya Srinathaji, Jai Balagopal, Jai Srinathaji, Jai Giri Govardhan. Jaya Srinathaji, Jai Balagopal, Jai Srinathaji, Jai Giri Govardhan. Jaya Gaurani Chai, Gaurani Chai, Jaya Gaurani Chai, Jaya Gaurani Chai. Prabhupada, 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 Jai Srila Prabhupada. Jai Jai Gurudev, 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 Jai Jai Gurudev. Jai Om Vishnu Pad, Paramaham Sipati Raj Gopal. Asura Satishi Shrimad Divine Grace, founder of ISKCON, Abhay Charnadavinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Grantaraj Shrimadbhagavatam Ki. Their most merciful Lordship Shri Kunja Bihari Ki. Shri Jagannath Shri Baladev Mahi Subhadra Ki. Shri Nathaji Shri Balagopal Ki. Shri Gauritai Ki. Itai Go Prema. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the Lord and Spirit of Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. So we are on text 32. Is that correct? Reading from Shrimadbhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 5, Text 32. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatam Vyasam Tato Jayamajiraya Nasta Prayashu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhagavati Naishtaki. Reading from Shrimadbhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 5, Text 32. Etat samsuchitam brahmams. Etat samsuchitam brahmams. Tapa traya chikitsitam. Tapatraya chikitsitam. Yad Ishvare Bhagavati. Yad Ishvare Bhagavati. Karma Brahmani Bhavitam. Karma Brahmani Bhavitam. Etat samsuchitam brahmams. Etat samsuchitam brahmams. Etat samsuchitam brahmams. Tapatraya chikitsitam. Tapatraya chikitsitam. Tapatraya chikitsitam. Yad Ishvare Bhagavati. Yad Ishvare Bhagavati. Yad Ishvare Bhagavati. Karma Brahmani Bhavitam. Karma Brahmani Bhavitam. Karma Brahmani Bhavitam.
Etat samsuchitam brahmas.
Etat samsuchitam brahmams.
Tapatraya chikitsitam.
Tapatraya chikitsitam.
Yad Ishvare Bhagavati.
Yad Ishvare Bhagavati.
Karma brahmani bhavitam.
Karma Brahmani Bhavitam.
Etat samsuchitam brahmams.
Etat samsuchitam brahmams.
Tapatraya chikitsitam.
Tapatraya chikitsitam.
Yad Ishvare Bhagavati.
Yad Ishvare Bhagavati.
Karma Brahmani Bhavititam.
Karma Brahmani Bhavitam. Etat. This much. Samsuchitam. Decided by the learned. Brahmana. O Brahmana Vyas. Tapatraya. Three kinds of miseries. Chiksitam. Remedial measures. Yat. What? Ishvare, the Supreme Controller. Bhagavati, unto the Personality of Godhead. Karma, one's prescribed activity. Brahmani, unto the great. Bhavitam, dedicated. Etat samsuchitam brahmam stapatraya chikitsitam. Yat Ishvare Bhagavati Karma Brahmani Bhavitam. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace. Avacharnadavinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. O Brahman Vyasadeva, It is decided by the learned that the best remedial measure for removing all troubles and miseries is to dedicate one's activities to the service of the Supreme Lord, Personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna. Please repeat. O Brahmana Vyasadeva.
O Brahmana Vyasadeva,
It is decided by the learned
it is decided by the Lord
that the best remedial measure
that the best remedial measure
for removing all troubles
for removing all troubles
and miseries
and miseries
is to dedicate one's activities
is to dedicate one's activities
to the service of the Supreme Lord,
to the service of the Supreme Lord,
Personality of Godhead,
Personality of Godhead,
Shri Krishna. O Brahman Vyasadeva, it is decided by the learned that the best remedial measure for removing all troubles and miseries is to dedicate one's activities to the service of the Supreme Lord, Personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna. Purport by His Divine Grace, Abhay Charanadavinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Sri Narad Muni personally experienced that the most feasible and practical way to open the path of salvation or get relief from all miseries of life is to hear submissively the transcendental activities of the Lord from the right and bona fide resources. This is the only remedial process. The entire material existence is full of miseries. Foolish people have manufactured out of their tiny brains many remedial measures for removing the threefold miseries pertaining to the body and mind, pertaining to the natural disturbances, and in relation with other living beings. The whole world is struggling very hard to exist out of these miseries. But men do not know that without the sanction of the Lord, no plan or no remedial measure can actually bring about the desired peace and tranquility. The remedial measure to cure a patient by medical treatment is useless if it is not sanctioned by the Lord. To cross the river or the ocean by a suitable boat is no remedial measure if it is not sanctioned by the Lord. We should know for certain that the Lord is the ultimate sanctioning officer, and we must therefore dedicate our attempts to the mercy of the Lord for ultimate success, or to get rid of the obstacles on the path of success. The Lord is all-pervading, all-powerful, omniscient, and omnipresent. He is the ultimate sanctioning agent of all good or bad effects. We should therefore learn to dedicate our activities unto the mercy of the Lord and accept Him either as impersonal Brahman, localized Paramatma, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It does not matter what one is. One must dedicate everything in the service of the Lord. If one is a learned scholar, scientist, philosopher, poet, etc., then he should employ his learning to establish the supremacy of the Lord. Try to study the energy of the Lord to every sphere of life. Do not decry Him and try to become like Him or take His position simply by fragmental accumulation of knowledge. If one is an administrator, statesman, warrior, politician, etc., then one should try to establish the Lord's supremacy in statesmanship. Fight for the cause of the Lord, as Sri Arjuna did. In the beginning, Sri Arjuna, the great fighter, declined to fight. But when he was convinced by the Lord that the fighting was necessary, Sri Arjuna changed his decision and fought for his cause. Similarly, if one is a businessman, an industrialist, an agriculturalist, etc., then one should spend his hard-earned money for the cause of the Lord. Think always that the money which is accumulated is the wealth of the Lord. Wealth is considered to be the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, and the Lord is Narayan, or the husband of Lakshmi. Try to engage Lakshmi in the service of Lord Narayan and be happy. That is the way to realize the Lord in every sphere of life. The best thing is, after all, to get relief from all material activities and engage oneself completely in hearing the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. But in case of the absence of such an opportunity, one should try to engage in the service of the Lord. Everything for which one has specific attraction, and that's the way of peace and prosperity. The word samsuchitam in this stanza is also significant. One should not think for a moment that the realization of Narada was childish imagination only. It's not like that. It is so realized by the expert and erudite scholars, and that is the real import of the word samsuchitam. I want to go back and see this. Samsuchitam is decided by the learned. So, see, it seems here to one extent, Narad Muni is wanting to confer upon Vedavyas the human perspective, where Vedavyas is in a position to feel as though he is given the best human perspective necessary to conduct their lives in the normal course of societal evolution, you may say, or development. But in that realization that these sages have had is that what really brings one to the place of happiness is seeing, hearing about these pastimes of Krishna and sharing the knowledge of these pastimes. I was drawn, when he points out that Arjuna didn't want to fight, right? And Arjuna was one of the best, as I explained, how he had to win Lady Subhadra by shooting his arrow. So although he was the best on the battlefield, you could see by the conversation, he wasn't in it for admiration or distinction or for his own glory even. He was saddened by the fact that now he's engaged in a battle with his own family members. And so he would rather just go off in the woods and just chant, meditate. That's what he was telling Krishna. But by Krishna's persuasion then, and see, this is an example of us as well. When we first come to Krishna consciousness, of course, we have in our backgrounds all the endeavors we've made to now take part in what we would consider our career. Or if, in the case of some, we would retire and figure out how to enjoy the rest of our life with maybe someone we love or like that. But when you come in contact with Krishna and you find out that all these endeavors we've been making up until this point to do just that, to have pleasure in the world, is not going to actually provide pleasure. That actually doing what pleases Krishna will give us the happiest, most satisfying experience in life. And that's what Narad Muni is saying to Vedavyas. Vedavyas is not in the human perspective, so to speak. He's wanting to be, which is why he's giving all these instructions for mankind to be given. So he's out of his love for humankind, wanting to give them the best. This is why it's evident here too. He's putting himself in a submission to someone else to receive. The same way he's saying that's a qualification to be able to receive knowledge. So you're coming here to hear Bhagavatam is your qualification to hear it. You're coming here to hear Bhagavatam is your qualification to hear, because you're submitting yourself. Same way Vedavyas was submitting himself to Narad Muni. And so he was putting himself in a position to be able to receive Narad Muni's experience, knowledge of what he had as a human being come to realize would provide other human beings the most glorious satisfaction. So if we take the example of Arjuna, then we may have to go completely opposite direction, because here he is. He doesn't want to fight at all. And now Krishna has persuaded him he has to. But he left him with the opportunity to make the choice. You can go either way you want. If you do choose not to fight, everybody's going to call you a coward. And especially since he had, you could say probably, advanced more so than any of the other students under the direction of Dronacharya. He was even a favorite to Dronacharya. He was a favorite to Grandfather Bhishma because of his qualities as the son of Indra. So I've been analyzing this act of demigods having children with human beings, because from the evidence here we get in this battlefield, Krishna was 12 feet tall, okay? There's a likelihood that a good many of the people in the battle were the result of higher forms of life intermingling with human beings. And so that is how the race was brought to a state of advancement that it was in, where human beings were given mantras. With a mantra, they could even destroy a planet. You know, mantras, these were powerful mantras. So, if Krishna returns his own movement, the Krishna consciousness movement is Krishna's movement, to its original state, as is pointed out here, the learned sages, to the kind of knowledge these learned sages had, these mantras are going to be put into effect again. It's going to restore their Brahminical status to its original state. And it will become clear in the future to the participants of the necessary structures needed and the necessary activities of the devotees. Because these activities we're engaged in now might be looked at as preliminary, even though the same way the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, it gives the summum bonum. But then we have understanding that Bhagavatam is the summum bonum. It gives the ultimate in revealing pastimes that are so intimately revealing relationships that are through no other discourse or no other writings that I have seen on the planet, revealing the kind of relationships that only those living entities in the spiritual world who have never left the spiritual world are having with Krishna himself. And this is also what he wants to bring us to. And this is what Narad Muni is telling Veda Vyas will bring us to that state, is the pastimes of Krishna being written about. More so. I mean, in one way of thinking about it, it might seem somewhat foreign to be thinking of one thing and doing something else, right? You have to think about what you're doing. But Krishna consciousness means Jai Yajurana Kingdom Head, Jai Jagannath, Jai Baladeva Mahisabha, Jai Shishibhantai. You read Mahabharata, you kind of get a feeling for how Arjuna, he wasn't doing it himself. By acknowledging Krishna's energy and Krishna as super soul within, and that super soul gives the ability, then it's super soul doing the work. See, Krishna said he wouldn't take up, weapons in the battle. He was already so famous for having wiped out single-handedly so many armies himself and his brother and Balaram. But in the minds of every single participant in that battle, Krishna is super soul. If he wants, he can drop a suggestion in your mind that will seem just like it did to Duryodhana. Duryodhana's mother had taken part in an austerity to make herself blind because her husband was blind, right, Dhritarashtra. And in doing that, she got a boon from Krishna that whoever she looked upon whoever she looked upon, they would not be able to be destroyed. In other words, they would be invincible. And so Duryodhana was told by his mother, after you shower, come, I want to see you naked. And Krishna suggested in Duryodhana's, he whispered in Duryodhana's ear, don't shame your mother, cover your body, put a towel around your waist anyways. I mean, that seems like the proper etiquette, right? Krishna's giving good advice. But that would then became the only part on his body in the battle that could be broken, his hips. And that's how he died, Bhima. And Krishna motioned to Bhima when they were fighting. Bhima and Duryodhana were in battle. And it was Bhima's wife who Duryodhana tried to disrobe. And so, while they were fighting, Duryodhana, of course, was very, very powerful and had that invincibility over his whole body. So no matter how many times Bhima hit him in the head, hit him in the arm, and wherever, couldn't bother him at all. And Krishna said like this, hit him into a hip. But see, hitting someone below the waist, that was against the etiquette. But if he wasn't killed, then justice would not have had its way with him. So Krishna's actions, justice, recompense by truth and justice stands by itself. as, in God's eyes, more important and powerful than this, you could say, the statutes themselves, the recompense. Because, see, how the soul gets out, it has to become clean from the acts against itself that it has committed. All these acts, sinful acts and deeds that we have in our minds taken part in to try and satisfy the urges of the mind, we have to get free from all those. And all those desires that we've fulfilled have caused reactions that we will have to, in the future, experience the result of without surrendering to Krishna. That's what we're forced to have to experience in the future if we don't surrender. So we have two ways of what is going to be the ultimate end if I don't surrender, and what is going to be the ultimate end if I do surrender. So this is the option Krishna gave Arjuna on the battlefield. You can be thought of as a coward, be infamous until you die, or by obeying the instructions of Krishna, then the battle was won, and Arjuna and all the warriors then were victorious. When we say ki jai, jai means victory, that's what they were, ki jai. When they would have pep talks every day, they would stop in the evening, the battle, they would recoup in the morning. They would have meals together at night, the enemies eating with each other at night. So it's on a completely different kind of consciousness that is being practiced now in the world, even though there's a carryover of laws that are supposed to be followed. But when you had the Kauravas already breaking every rule in the book, before the battle even started, they built them a house of lac. Lacquer, you know what lacquer is, right?
No.
Lacquer is what they seal houses with. You know what pine tar is?
Yeah.
You know what happens if you touch pine tar with a match? Yeah, it just like petroleum, immediately ignites. We call it starter wood. In Florida, they call it starter wood. You take a pine tree, cut it up into little tiny chips like this, almost toothpick size, and just by lighting that, it will create drops. You put that on your fire, and boom, your fire starts up already. So they built the whole house purposely to burn it down, with the Pandavas in it. The Pandavas in it. And who came to the rescue? Vidura knew and came and told them, and there was a secret cave underneath the house that nobody else knew about. That I think Vidura was the one that told them, and that's how they escaped. And somehow there were 5 bodies found dead in there that they thought they had succeeded. And the Pandavas, they left from that place and remained in exile, but on the last year of their exile, they could not be found out or recognized by anyone. So in the previous 11 years, by the fame of who they were administrators that were subservient to the emperor, right? So they were like world rulers. Here would be like presidents. But being sent into exile, then anyone that knew them would, of course, give them shelter and feed them, whatever. But on the last year, they had to do that in private. And nobody could find them out. And if anybody had them, they had to go another 12 years like that, living in the woods with nothing else. And so on that last year, they had confided in a king, Bhima took the part of a ballet dancer to disguise himself so that the king, who had known them, wouldn't know who they were, right? They were friends previously, but they couldn't be made known. They couldn't let anybody know. But when finally the king did find out, he took his ring and he threw it at Yudhishthira and hit him in the head till blood started gushing. Yudhishthira's holding his blood like this because if his blood touched the ground, because of who he was, whoever caused that to happen would have a very disastrous ending of his life. So that was the mercy of Yudhishthira because of his friend, the king that was giving him shelter. He kept his blood from falling on the ground. So they were aware of so many. See, that was karma. That was how karma worked. And in previous ages, karma worked right now. You did the act, boom, you got the reaction. So see, similarly, when you're working close with Krishna on the altar, you think wrong things, immediately Krishna lets you know, don't think like that, you know. You get a reaction, you stub your foot. I stubbed my toe the other day. Until I fell off my bike 3 times. Yeah. Gotta think right. Gotta think the way Krishna wants you to think. And if you don't, Krishna's close enough, a friend, to let you know why you have the disturbances. Otherwise, you ain't correct it, right? You think, oh, it just happenstance. The whole world is thinking that accidents are real. That's not our philosophy. There's no such thing.
Coincidence.
Yeah, coincidence.
Right.
It's all karma reacting to our previous activities, involving ourselves with that same, for our pleasure, hoping to gain something from it. But it's not owed to us. And if we approach that energy as if it is, just like Srila Prabhupada's pointing out here, Lakshmi Devi, that energy which we use to obtain money is Lakshmi Devi's energy. And that wisdom we gain to be able to do that, that's Lakshmi Devi's wisdom. That's her energy as well. So the act of wanting to gain money is lusting after Krishna's wife. That's the same thing we do. So every morning, first thing we do, we respect Mother Bhumi is also taking a form of Lord Vishnu's wife. So the earth is her body. When Native American Indians talk about the Mother Earth, that's who we're talking about also when we say Bhumi Devi. All of these philosophies, these ancient philosophies that have built in within them aspects of the teachings that are of an ancient nature, built into them reincarnation. Karma, the word, automatically has built in within it reincarnation. Karma, that's where it's coming from. So see, when they have to add these words to the English language because the founders and the creators of the language itself were not self-realized. And you see the same thing with the Bible. See the same thing with the Quran. Well, that's why all these quote-unquote scriptures, by Srila Prabhupada's words, are said to be given to lower class people who require justification for their sinful activity. And Krishna allows them to justify it in their mind. Otherwise, if people felt so condemned and yet driven by the lust of their body, they want to end their lives. I got to that point at one point as well. You feel like you're not able to control yourself. Lust and greed and these things are so overpowering, and yet you don't want to offend God. You just better just end it all. Right? But it doesn't work like that. When Krishna grabs a hold of you, you can't go until he decides. Especially when you give him your will. So this is what's being requested by Arjuna. Don't give your will over to your mind. Don't let your mind take over your own will. Use your mind to determine what you will do, not let your mind determine for you. So the mind is only used to make the acceptance or the rejection. That's what the mind is supposed to be used for. But if we allow the mind to make up for us the decision, this is why guidance is being given to us, because then we base our decisions on the scriptures, not on our own concoctions, not on our own experiences even, but with what the scripture says. So then we won't fail, because they're built on that which Krishna has himself spoken of. And then in following that, then, you can't fail. On the one hand, previously, what was it? Krishna told Duryodhana, cover his waist, right? See, this is what you would call a religious principle, to not show your nakedness. So on the one hand, he's giving them religious advice. On the other hand, he's keeping them from being able to be invisible during the battle, because he knows in the battle, the only way that he'd be able to be killed is if some part of his body is vulnerable. So, same way on the battlefield, he told Yudhisthira. Yudhisthira is the incarnation of Yamaraj. Yamaraj is an incarnation of Krishna, who is the incarnation of religion itself. So see, every principle that people are judged by, Yamaraj is on that planet which that judgment is given, which the Yamadutas drag the soul to. He's on that planet, okay? So, Yamaraj's son, Yudhisthira, also is like father, like son, right? So he is manifesting, because from his father's body, he is manifesting the nature of his father, right? So this is too revealing to us another significant aspect that I've been preaching about for a while. The same way the father is in his consciousness at the time he's giving his seed to his wife, that will very much empower the seed that is of that same likeness. And that's why parents don't know why they get egotistic children that want their own way and it can't be broken. Because they're calling that kind of a seed that's within the Father. Father has billions of seeds. Every single one of them. Just like we were saying, our relationship, each and every one of us is individual. Each and every one of those billions of seeds within us are individuals and have had individual relationship with Krishna, and in the future can have relationship with Krishna. But the Father empowers. So Yudhisthira was so empowered by the force of his father's strictness of religion. But of course his father is Krishna himself, but in another aspect of Krishna's psyche, you could say. Because in Krishna's mind, every aspect of his psyche, to be manifest in completeness, has to take a complete form. So this is what Buddha did. Took the form of intelligence. Lord Chaitanya takes the form of love. Srimati Radharani in Krishna, in completeness. So everything coming originally from Krishna, but strength of God takes the form of Balaram. And in that Leela with Lord Chaitanya takes the form of his brother Nityananda. So they are all, then see, they would say, oh, you're worshiping many gods. No, it's just one God revealing himself in time and circumstance, and also the completeness. Just because he manifests both aspects, his strength and his mercy or love, individually, in the same time, doesn't mean that he's two different people. So see, too, on the altar we see 7 different manifestations, but actually the various aspects of Krishna's own personality. So in that aspect we see in Lord Jagannath, who is the Lord of the universe, we see in him a form that is representative of the supreme aspects of every form of life in the universe. So that's why he appears to us as wood or carved or like this, because the forms of human that there are throughout the universe are not restricted to the kind of form of human that we have been put into. And some of them look very different than we do. And so, but Lord Jagannath in that form represents them all, representing all human forms. It's perfection. And just as Krishna's mother revealed the universe to her in his mouth, you can see the universe in Lord Jagannath. Same way, you can see it. If Krishna chooses to reveal it to you. But this is a stage of advancement that Krishna gives to his personal associates, whom he reveals how dear they are to him. This is how we have ecstatic experiences with Krishna that you know are more than your mind can fathom, more than your mind could produce. When you're getting realization from the deity form of Krishna, you know it's not yourself, it's not your imagination either. And it happens, but not by desire either. It's not that we worship Krishna with the hope of getting some result out of it. That's not what love is. So this movement offering, more so than I've seen with any other philosophical group or, institution, love of God in its purest love of God in its purest form, without expectation of reward, without desire for anything in return or in exchange for the efforts being made to serve, but with a realization of the privilege, the highest privilege that this service to Krishna is, that no matter how menial it appears to be, it has the supreme ability to transform that which is mundane into the supreme transcendent, which is simply bringing us back to our original state. Because as long as we act in the material world with material desires, material activities, material actions, we get the same result we would as if we were material beings. We get material ends. But acting on the spiritual platform is in itself a spiritual activity, which engaged in for the rest of our lives will lead us into the spiritual realm. As menial as it may appear, milking a cow for a farmer is like a menial task. But the gopis do that. When the milk is given to Krishna, the cow gets benefit. Transcendental benefit, too. And when the person who's milking the cow milks the cow, they're getting benefit from the cow. Spiritually as well, because the cow being born in the mode of goodness. You touch that cow, your aura is magnified like 100 times. because it's born in the mode of goodness, and because it's dear to Krishna. Also, you see these peacocks, they're very special, and Krishna has made them with aspects of his own personality. A peacock hen, I guess I shouldn't call her a peacock, a hen, a peahen, there we go. A peahen will not accept the seed from the male unless he cries, and then she takes the drops of his tears from his eyes with her beak. And in that way then, that's a preliminary requirement for him to be able to give her his seed. Wow. See? And they do the dance, he does the dance. She becomes, you can transfix a cobra and put a cobra in a trance. They do that when they're playing the flute, and you see these cobras come up from they're doing like that. The cobra is in a trance. He's in a state of mind in which the vibrations of that flute is putting him into. He loses control. So this is what happens with the gopis. This is what happens with the cow also, whose milk is being used to service in Krishna. And Shrimadbhagavatam will tell you how many years that milk keeps on coming. And it is because of the cow's attraction to Krishna and Krishna's control of that. And again, these are all little tiny aspects of Krishna's complete personality. Isn't it magnificent how beautiful? Look at a peacock. God, the feathers on that thing are just so attractive. Then when he does the dance for the female, every one of those feathers, they just go into a shaking, And it's his expression of love for her. Because love made everything. Love, Krishna, who has caused everything to come into existence, did it out of love. Came here out of love, brought Brahma here out of love, chose Brahma out of his love for the rest of the living entities to be guided by Brahma's guidance, by Brahma's words. So everything is done that is done by Krishna is done out of love. And so if we have in our mind of minds any esteem at all for love, in my mind, it should be the highest, right? Love. Because if love was ruling everything, there would be no war. I don't think there would be any sickness or disease even. But because we have so turned our minds away from, in previous ages, even just 100 or 200 years ago, every family knew how to grow their own food. But they didn't know how to, by concentration on God's ways, know how to produce food that would give them the kind of product that would be offerable to the Supreme Person. We offer foods that we're getting from karmis that are not actually what would be on the top of the line. What we could say is on the top of the line.
Do they get benefit?
But they get benefit. Well, they're getting rewarded. They're getting benefit of the material, and their desires are for the material. And of those who are working and giving, they're told to give a tenth, right? As tithing, that's accepted, they'll make it to heaven. Do you know how many hours it takes to chant 16 rounds, right? What part of a day is that?
1/10 of your day.
1/12 even.
Yeah.
Only a 12th. And that's all Krishna's asking of us. And they're being told to give a 10th, and yet we're being told to give a 12th. But see, we look at it as more, right? But see, through the day, they're having to work 10 hours. One entire hour of that 10 is given to God. But when they come home, their mind is so encrusted by the experiences they've had at work. They gotta drink coffee to forget about it and try and enthuse them to give them some energy to continue existing for the next few hours. They gotta wake up and go through the whole, submit themselves to the whole force. This is pushing them to do these kinds of activities. I was reading just yesterday in Bhagavatam Canto 5, Srila Prabhupada goes into this really bad struggle that existing has become in the material world. It's a tough struggle. When you look at what farming has developed into, because of the way that now only about 3% of the population engages in the act of farming, that they have to have machines, and when the price fluctuates by a difference of 2 or 3 cents per pound, they're either poor or rich. And so having a small farm to expect the income to provide you enough to pay for your rent, to pay for your insurance, pay for your transportation, and on and on and on and on, it's very difficult. And these big, huge corporations own these big, huge pieces of machinery, $100,000, $200,000, $1 million, that harvest the crops, that plant the crops, that do everything that human beings used to do, wipes out man's connection to the earth that is allowing him to provide that which he can offer to God. I have in mind to see, I don't think the earth is the best medium. Now, by earth, of course, we have to use the earth. We're not going to get anything here from heaven. But what I mean by that is dirt. The form we're finding it in, I don't think is the best medium for food to be produced by. But the earth produces a medium, cotton, that could very well be a superior form, medium, to produce vegetables in. And I know, called Sonic Bloom, of a totally organic fertilizer that would be made by nature in the wild that can be used to feed these plants, that we might find out food itself, I really believe this strongly, when produced properly, will give mankind a long lifespan. But we are not producing it properly. And the genetic stuff they're doing to it is really bad, totally against humankind. But as devotees, we are instructed by Srila Prabhupada to establish this Varnashram system, which includes farming in it, so that we can be producing our own. See, we distinct between that which is made by people who want something in exchange for their labors, and we call that energy karmi. And they may be working according to religious principles, with the hope of having heaven as the reward at the end of life. But all that is not love. That is not pure love. And what we do when we distinguish between that which is produced by quote-unquote karmis, the term karmi is actually giving these people who are working of that nature a compliment. Because karmi means one who is working according to the Varnashram system and offering the plenteousness of their outcomes to God. That's what the term karmi really means. But we use it kindly. People might think we're using it in a derogatory manner, but it actually has a very positive meaning. They are working according to the laws governing fruit of activity, with the hopes of being able to get some reward in the end, but that's not bhakti. So karmi is working using the material energy as it was meant to be used, but devotee is not using the material energy. He's engaged in Krishna's energy. That's the difference. Yeah. His interior energy is motivated by love, the devotee. Whereas the karmi is motivated by the result he can get from the effort. Right? We're all, see, it can be said, we're also motivated by what we're going to get. We're going to get Krishna. So we're motivated by what we're going to get in the end too. But not the same way. Because we want to please Krishna. We don't want to get something from Krishna. We want to give our lives to Krishna. And that's Krishna consciousness, because he's giving himself to us. It's a reciprocal. And when it becomes equal, Srila Prabhupada said one time of Mother Malati, here she'd been getting up every morning, doing things right, and going Mangalarti. And he had reprimanded her a couple of times because of habits she had formed previously. With all that reprimand, she was feeling very hurt, kind of, that she hadn't done things properly. But when he and she came in the company of many Indian folks that he was revealing how dedicated these disciples were, he said, she would cut her she would cut her neck for me. He said she would give her life for me. And so then when Mother Malati had heard that, boom, that's love, that someone recognizes that someone would lay down their life for them. That's the meaning of love to me. What's the Bible say? A man has no greater love than to lay down his life for his fellow man, isn't it? Yeah. So that's what's being requested by the people on the battlefield, and in this day and age as well, they're being tested on the battlefield. What is the cause they're dying for? Both sides are dying for what they believe to be the same cause, which is sad. And on both sides, you see praying going on as well. Who's hearing their prayer? He's got to answer them both. That's a predicament we put God in. We ask for all these things, and he wants to give us more. He's only going to give us what we ask for. So we should ask for the eternal by engaging in the eternal. We don't have to ask with our mouth by desiring or developing desire. We experience the spirituality by engaging in the spiritual energy. And that makes so much sense, doesn't it? And when I say it, I think, wow, that's just common sense. Any questions? I'm running over time. Don't take until after 9:38 if you're going to break Ekadasi.
9:38?
9:38 and 11 something, but as long as it's after 9:38. Before 11 something. Any comments, any questions, any realizations? It's really a blessing for me to be able to give class to you guys. I don't know if you're... Because you keep requesting, I feel as though you're appreciating. Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity. It was hard, when Jusha and I were here alone from, in the early 90s. I'm sorry, in the early 2000s. Yeah.
You were here by yourself?
Well, it was me and him. I was doing Mangalartik, and then he was coming every morning, and he would sing songs. But then when he stopped coming, then I was here alone, and then until I got, where I couldn't come. It's difficult, when every morning you're expecting, well, one day a bunch of devotees are going to come, and then they'll be coming regularly, but no, it didn't happen.
Wow.
It hasn't happened. But more are coming now than, and especially with you guys requesting class.
There's a lot of people joining us online.
Say that again?
There's a lot of people joining us online.
Yeah, which is also a great blessing. But
Yeah.
see, this is new too. This is this year we're starting this, right? So,
I look every day.
That's
when I get
glorious.
home, and
Yeah.
there's like 100 and something views
oh, that's good. That's
Yeah.
great. That's good.
on Facebook.
I used to do a radio show once a week, and there were 10,000 listeners.
10,000?
Yeah,
Krishna just says sometimes.
that was once a week.
Krishna says sometimes 500 views.
500 views, yeah, that's great.
So,
But see, on one radio show, and this was the smallest radio broadcasting network in this area, and still it's getting 10,000 views every week. But see, if we got into someone like Fox, and these, and I'm thinking about it, if I get an hour there, if I had 15 minutes on there, I could give them more than's being given by the whole political viewpoints. But see, if I do that, then I have to, in my mind, once I commit myself, I have to do it, you know, and I'm not at the point now that, back and forth, I don't know whether I can commit myself to that. I tried to commit myself to Masters, Toastmasters, and that didn't work out.
Have you been to Toastmaster?
Not recently. Yeah, I went many times. I was there for a few months with Adishwar. Wonderful thing to take part in. Wonderful.